On this video today, I'm going to talk to you about your fast first million. The fastest path to your first $1 million. And there's a slow path and there's a fast path. The slow path is the one that a lot of people take. If you make, $25,000 a year and you work for 40 years, you made $1 million. Or if you make $50,000 a year and you work for 40 years, you make $2 million. That's one way to do it. But that slow path is kind of painful. And generally speaking, when you get there, you don't have that much left over. What if it were possible for you to generate $1 million in 5 years instead of 20? That would be better, right? If you could generate $1 million in 3 years rather than 5 years, that would be better, right? If you could generate $1 million in 1 year rather than 3 years, that would be better. If you could generate $1 million in a month, that'd be better than a year. If you could generate $1 million in a week, that'd be better than doing it in a month. And I think Noah, his last name is Congan, Noah something, he wrote a book called The $1 Million Weekend. If you could generate $1 million in a weekend, that'd be better than $1 million in a week. And what if you could do $1 million in an hour? And I know all of that sounds like really, really hypey and like oh, clickbait, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I'm sure there are people who do that. But I want to talk to you about the fastest path to your first million. And I'm not going to give you theory because nothing I teach is theory. And by the way, all of those things I've just talked about, $1 million in 5 years, I've done that. $1 million in 3 years, yep, that too. $1 million in 1 year, yep, done that too. $1 million in a month, yep, done that too. $1 million in a week, yep, done that too. $1 million in a day, in a weekend, yep, that too. Day, yep, that too. An hour, yep, $1 million in revenue in an hour. So I'm not exaggerating anything. I'm just going to talk to you about my experiences and the experiences of some of the people that I've coached and the things that we have all had in common that caused this to happen. You have to understand first and foremost why it's not happening. By the way, let me give a public service announcement really quickly. There are a lot of fake Myron Golden channels out there. If you don't see me sitting here or over there at my digital blackboard talking, then it's not my channel. And it's not me. If you just hear like this really raspy, it almost sounds robotic AI, that's somebody who cloned my voice with AI. They did a terrible job cloning it, by the way. And then they put an image of me. They'll say inspired by Myron Golden. It's not inspired by me. I didn't inspire any of that mess. Those are not my channels. Watch them at your own risk. Do not let somebody con you into sending them money for some crypto scheme or some other kind of scheme based on something that you saw that looked like me, sounded like me, but was not me. So if it's not on Myron Golden on YouTube, or it's not on Bible Study with Myron Golden or Myron Golden Shorts, or I'm not being interviewed on somebody else's channel, it's not me. It's some con artist out there trying to make you think it's me so they can get something from you that they don't deserve. Don't fall for it. Okay. That's the public service announcement. And it's sad that I have to use the time of this video to make that public service announcement, but I don't want you to get duped. And it's already happened on Instagram and all these platforms oftentimes care more about users, like active users that they can report on their annual reports than they do about actually protecting their customers. So that's my rant. I'm sticking with it. So your fast first million. So let's talk about something. Why is fast important? Because we've been warned our whole lives, right? About get rich quick schemes. Oh, that sounds like a get rich quick scheme. Here's why. One of the reasons I believe that so many people stay broke their whole life. Because they've been warned about the get rich quick scheme, but they've not been warned about the stay broke for the rest of your life scheme. And most people have adapted and adopted the stay broke for the rest of your life scheme. Now, somebody who tells you you're going to get rich by next Thursday and you don't have to do anything, they're lying to you. That's not true. If you are going to make $1 million in any length of time, you're going to have to bring way more than $1 million worth of value into the marketplace. You're not going to make $1 million just because you want to make that amount of money. But why is it important that you do it fast? Well, here's why. Because life is short. Let's start with that. It's important to make your money fast because life is short. You're only going to be here for a limited amount of time. And I'm sure the people that were alive 100 years ago, I'm sure they felt like they had all this time too. But they didn't even have as much time as you have. And guess what? Life is still short. And so It's just fascinating to me that people dote through life as if they feel like they're going to live to be 922. It's not going to happen. So one of the reasons fast is important is because you're going to die. I'm going to die. We're all going to die. So we might as well get it done while we can enjoy it with the people that we love the most, while we have enough money left over to contribute to the cause that we care about the most. We might as well get it done sooner rather than later, right? The longer you put it off, the longer life stays hard, financially anyway. And the sooner you get it done, well, the longer you get to enjoy it. So that's why. But also, if you do it fast, it's easier than doing it slow. Making $1 million fast, hear me now, making $1 million fast is much easier than making $1 million slow. Now, why do I say making $1 million fast is much easier than making $1 million slow? A couple reasons. Number one, because speed is a catalyst. It's a difference maker. What do you mean speed is a catalyst, is a difference maker? Well, if you think about it, what is the scientific definition or the scientific equation for force? F. Force equals what? Let me write it on the board for you. Okay. F equals ma. What does that mean? F equals ma. Force equals mass times acceleration, right? And so acceleration is the rate at which you increase speed. And so you become way more, so if you want to become more of a financial force, there's only two things you can use to become more of a financial force. You have to increase the mass, the amount of money you have, and kind of that's what we're all talking about in the first place, or you have to increase the rate of speed at which you earn the money. So when you earn the money faster, now the acceleration creates more mass that you can apply more acceleration to. So these two components have a compounding effect to make that bigger. Does that make sense? Are y'all tracking? And so what happens is because force equals mass times acceleration, I have to either increase the speed or increase the mass. I have to increase the acceleration or increase the mass. Well, in order to increase the mass, you have to have some way of increasing the mass. Well, the only way to increase the mass is increase the acceleration, right? So here's what I'm saying. Everybody watching me on YouTube, everybody in this room right now, you're all making enough money to be rich. Already. You're already making enough money to be rich. You're just not making it fast enough. If you take the amount of money you're making right now, and you are making this amount, whatever amount of money you're making right now, let's say you're making $60,000 a year right now. Okay, cool. You're making enough money to get rich. The problem is the gestation period between this 60,000 and the next 60,000 is too long. So now, if you collapse the time frames and you say, okay, how can I go from making $60,000 a year to making $60,000 a month? You didn't change the amount of money you made, you just changed the time period in which you made that money. Does that make sense? And so now, because of acceleration, you have more mass. Y'all tracking? Okay, cool. So it's important, one, because force equals mass times acceleration. But we have something blocking us. All of us have something blocking us. And the thing we have blocking us is this thing called inertia. Inertia is, like you have financial inertia right now. And what does that mean? Inertia is an object at rest will remain at rest unless it's acted upon by an outside force. So an object at rest will remain at rest unless it's acted upon by an outside force. So your financial situation, if it is where it is and it's been there for a while, you have financial inertia. Are y'all tracking? So what's the opposite of inertia? Momentum. Right? Momentum is an object in motion, will continue in motion unless it's acted upon by an outside force. So what you have to do is you have to overcome inertia. Inertia is an object at rest, will remain at rest unless it's acted upon by an outside what? Outside what? Force. So you have to become the outside force by increasing your mass or your acceleration or both. And the best way for you to increase your financial mass is to increase your financial acceleration. So, by the way, did you ever notice that you don't find things you're not looking for generally? Every now and then you'll find something you're not looking for. But most of the things you found in your life, you found them because you were looking for them, right? You don't discover principles that you're not looking for. I mean, sometimes you do, but for the most part, you find things you're looking for, right? Well, you fix problems you know you have. People don't stumble upon fixes to problems they didn't know existed. And so it helps to have as an awareness, number one, that it is possible for you to increase the acceleration of your financial situation. Like, if I could just make money faster, like if you could just accept the fact. What if let's ask this question. Let's don't even state it as a fact. Let's just ask it as a question. What if it were possible to make money faster? What if it were possible for you to take the amount of money that you make every year and make that amount of money 12 times faster? Would that change your life? What if that were possible? If it were possible, would it be worth figuring out? Yes, 100% it'd be worth figuring out. Okay, what if it were possible for you to make the amount of money you make every year 52 times faster? Would that be worth figuring out? Right, so now we're talking about taking the same amount of money you're making every year and making that amount of money every week. So here's my question. Why don't you? Why are you not already making the amount of money every week this year, or let's say every month? Why are you not making the amount of money every month this year that you were making all of last year? Why? Because you've never thought about it. Am I keeping it real? Like, you've never thought about how do I do? You may have thought about I'd like to do that for a fleeting second, but you've never really sat down and said, if my life depended on it, or the life of someone I love, how would I take and multiply the acceleration of earned income so that I make as much money in a month as I used to make in a year? People have never asked the question. Before I got there, I asked that question all the time. Like, how can I make more money? Like, our business does a significant amount of money, like on average over $30,000 a day for years. Well, that's okay unless I let that amount of money keep me from making the amount of money that I could make. And somebody, why do you care about making more money if your business is making $30,000 a day? Because I am a person who likes to max out my potential. Why would I want to make less than I'm able to make if I can make more? If I can make more, I can do more with it, right? And so my questions are, okay, how can, like, 30,000 a day, how can we make 30,000 30 times a day? Oh, that'd be fun, right? 30,000 30 times in one day. Like, what would we have to do to go to 900,000 a day? No, I wouldn't have to stop golf. No, unless that's what I concluded. See, our problem is we don't ever sit down and think about our problem and think about a path to the payoff for that problem. We don't think about it. And so if you don't think about the problem, you can't fix the problem. So here's the first thing you have to do. If you're going to increase your speed and you're going to overcome inertia and you're going to create momentum. So I didn't write that one down. So one of the things, you have to create revenue momentum. How do I increase the momentum of my revenue? Well, ask yourself the question. How do you make revenue right now? Something just happened with my microphone. How do you create revenue right now? How do you do it? How do you make money? I don't want you to answer me. I want you to think about it. Online, if you want to type in the comments how you make money, that's fine. You can do that. So here's how. You either make money with labor or leverage. Right? Now, if you are making money with labor, right? On the 4 levels of value, this is implementation. This is unification. This is communication. This is imagination. So if I'm talking about labor, which ones of these would that be? Labor. Which one? Implementation. Implementation is like labor. And see, the problem with labor is that most labor is not leveraged because people don't know how to leverage labor, or they don't ever think about leveraging their labor. So if you make money with labor, here's what that means you're doing. You are buying into this myth. Time is money. So therefore, if you believe that time is money, or time is equal to money, then you'd happily trade this for this. But what if you changed your paradigm and you stopped believing these lies, and instead you believe something different, like time is more valuable than money, or time is greater than money? Or better yet, what if you started believing that time is infinitely greater than money? See, I believe that one of the reasons rich people get richer and poor people get poorer is because rich people value time over money and poor people value money over time. And poor people value money over time, so what they do, and middle class people do the same thing, they trade time for money. So here's my question for y'all. And you can answer loud so the people on YouTube can hear. So here's the question I have for you. Is time something you have in limited supply or unlimited supply? Limited supply. So time's something you have in limited supply. So if time is something that you have in limited supply, if you're exchanging time for money, how is your money going to show up? Limited. The reason your money's limited is because you're trading a limited amount, a limited asset for another limited asset. That's why you're stuck. That's not the whole picture, but that's the big part of the whole picture. You're trading a limited amount of time for a limited amount of money. And here's the sad part. You want to see the sad part? This is really sad and painful. If you have a limited amount of time and you trade it for somebody else's money, so once you get the money, the time is gone forever. You never get the time back. You can't get that time back. So now the time is gone. And then what do you do with the money? Well, you got expenses, right? You got expenses, and then you've got stuff you want to buy, and so you go spend the money on something. Let's call it a car, right? So you go buy a car, and so when you buy the car, now you don't have the money, you don't have the time, and all you have is a car. And the car, this is an asset. It's a limited asset. This is a depreciating asset, and this is a depreciating liability. Liability. And so what happens is you've traded something infinitely valuable for something less valuable, for something that's less valuable and becoming worth less over time. No wonder people stay broke. See, you thought, most people think that rich people are rich because they have money. But the reality is, rich people have money because they're rich. And the rich came before the money. And the rich is understanding that this is not the equation. So instead of doing it this way, what do? I don't know what to do. But that's the only way you can make money. You got to trade time for money. Well, if that's what you believe, then that's what you're going to keep doing. And if that's what you keep doing, you're going to keep getting what you've been getting. And if what you've been getting is what you like getting, then keep on doing it. But if not, maybe it might be a good idea to ask yourself the question, is there a better way? And there is a better way. So what is the better way? So here's the formula. I have 5 points or 3 subpoints under each point, so I better get started. Okay, the first thing you have to do is you have to study the right people. Just study people. Why? Why do I have to study people? I have to study people because once I study people, then I've got to select the right people that I'm going to work with. Because I can't work with everybody. Neither can you. Nobody can. So how do I select the right people? It's so simple. It's so simple. You find a big pool of people that have a painful problem that you've already solved. You've already solved it in your own life, or you've already solved it in somebody else's life. Maybe your father solved it and he taught you how to solve it. Maybe your mother solved it and taught you how to solve it, but they've got a problem you can solve. It's like, see, we believe that we buy in this erroneous belief that what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to school. You're going to go back to school for 4 years in a fast-paced world, and you're going to learn a skill to solve a problem that no longer exists by the time you graduate. And now you're tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. And you're wondering why most people are stuck like Chuck in a pickup truck, and when people graduate from college, they have to get a job waiting tables. They have to get a job waiting tables because that's the only thing that they can find to make enough money to live and still be able to pay off their college loans for the piece of paper that's hanging on their wall that they can't even use to get a job. Am I coming out too strong, a little bit too? Because I can pump the brakes. So you have to study people. You have to pick a group of people that you can serve that have a problem that you can solve. And so the group of people must be large. So this group of people, it has to be a large group of people. Like, if only 3 people in the world have the problem, you can't make $1 million solving a problem for 3 people unless it's a multi-million-dollar problem. The group of people must be large. The group of people must be labeled. What do I mean labeled? They have to be in a category. They have to be labeled. What do I mean? Oh, these are people these are a large group of people. They're lawyers. They can't get clients. They're labeled, right? Okay, now, so I've got lawyers who learned how to do law, but they didn't learn how to get clients to do law for. Great. Now you have a large group of people who are labeled. And then this large group of people must be leverageable, which means they can afford to pay to solve whatever their problem is. These people have a problem. Now, here's what happens. Most people, when it comes to creating wealth, they pick the wrong people. Now, here's the biggest mistake. Like, I've coached thousands of people, thousands of entrepreneurs. Here's the number one mistake I've seen when it comes to picking people. They pick the people who need it instead of the people who want it. And see, here's the problem. Everybody who needs your solution doesn't want it. And by the way, this is going to be shocking. Everybody who wants your solution doesn't need it. What? I have found, it's like Jim Rohn said. Jim Rohn said he was doing an event one time, and he was teaching people how to make more money. He was teaching people how to get rich. He said, there's some successful people in this audience. I pulled in. I saw Cadillacs. I saw Mercedes. I even saw a Rolls Royce. He said, and yet you are the people here today. He said, I can only imagine the guy with the Rolls Royce saying, I got to get to this seminar to find out how I can get another one. Right? You don't need the first one. So if you sell to people, a large group of people who want a solution, they don't necessarily need the solution, but they want the solution really, really badly. And they're labeled, and they're leverageable. They got money. If they decide they want to buy your thing, they can do it. And they don't have to have a committee meeting about it. They can just do it. Okay? So that's, you have to study the people. If you pick the wrong people, I'm going to tell you something. So when I got started, here's the beautiful thing about having some small success. It lets you know you can have some success. And I was sharing with the folks in the studio audience this morning, when I got started, I was a network marketer. I was in multi-level marketing, and I know some of y'all think it's the most terrible thing on there. I don't do network marketing. I have no interest in it. Like, I have no interest in doing it as a business, but I know for a fact that it is as legitimate as any other business if they have a good product, right? If they have a good product. And you may disagree with that, and that's fine. And you may think I'm a horrible person because I said that, and that's fine. I don't care. I don't have time to care. But like I did network marketing, and that's where I learned how to sell. I sold financial services in network marketing. I sold nutritional supplements in network marketing. I sold telecom services in network. I sold all kinds of stuff in network marketing because that was the biggest business leverage I had ever seen in my life. I'd never seen business leverage before network marketing. I didn't even know that business leverage existed. I just thought you go to work, you work really hard, you do that for a week, and at the end of the week you get a paycheck, right? And so I got to the point where I got tired of doing network marketing, but I was decent at it. I wasn't great. I was not great. I was decent. I was okay. Like, I knew how to make $5,000 to $7,000 a month consistently, right? Which is decent part-time income, right? And so I got tired of doing that. I said, you know what I'm going to do? There are millions of people in this industry who don't know how to make any money. I'm going to teach those people how to make more money. So notice, the large pool of people, I didn't pick network marketers as a whole. I just picked the people who weren't making $1,000. They weren't making $2,000 a month. They were making less than $7,000. I said, I'm going to create a solution for them. And I did. I created a solution. Now, guess who has access to a lot of people that aren't making $7,000 a month in network marketing? People who are making $10,000 a month in network marketing. People who are making $20,000 a month in network marketing. People who are making $30,000 a month in network marketing. People who are making $90,000 or $100,000 a month in network marketing have access to a whole bunch of people who aren't making $10,000 a month, aren't making $7,000, aren't making $5,000, aren't making $1,000. And guess what? Here's what I discovered. Just because somebody's good at doing something doesn't mean they're good at teaching it. And so all the people who are making good money in network marketing, a lot of the people who are good at making money in network marketing, they weren't good at teaching their people how to make money. I was good at teaching their people how to make money. And I wasn't making as much money as they were, but I was making more money than their people. So guess what they would do? They would bring me in and let me teach their people how to make more money in network marketing. And some of them would pay me to come in and teach their people. And others of them would let me come in and then sell my training course to the people on their team. And they didn't even want an affiliate split. It was great. I got to the point where I was making $10, $20, $30, $40, $50,000 a month. Watch this now. Teaching people who had a problem that I used to have how to solve the problem that they have now that I had then. Are y'all tracking? Is what I'm saying making sense? And by the way, it was hard. It wasn't kind of hard. It was really hard. It was like cassette tapes that had to be duplicated. And I didn't have a tape duplicator. It took me, if I have 2 times speed, so if I had a 90-minute tape, I could duplicate that 90-minute tape in 45 minutes, one 90-minute tape. But I had and my tapes were about 40 minutes. So it took me 20 minutes to duplicate both sides of a 20-minute tape on a dual stereo. That's how I started. There was no online anything where you could access something online. There were no Zoom calls. There weren't even conference calls. Well, there were conference calls when I got started. But there were no Zoom calls. Webinars weren't even a thing. This was before webinars, right? This was back in the teleseminar secrets days. And so I used what I had available to me to solve a problem of a big group of people that was easy to find, and they were easy to label, and they had enough money to buy my solution. And guess what? My first product, I sold it for $67. Yay. I put a couple of products together. My first package or my first offer that was not just a single product was $147. I said it wrote $197. It was $147. Like, that's where I started. And guess what? Sold enough of these one day in August, back in 2001, I think it was. I sold enough of these in August that I made $6,900 in one day, like in 45 minutes. I was like, oh, that was amazing. And so I said, let me put that thing on rinse and repeat, right? And so that's the first thing. You know how to do something. Maybe you know how to cook, right? Maybe that's what you teach. Maybe you teach people how to cook. I don't know. Maybe you know how to be a locksmith. Maybe you teach people how to be a locksmith. Maybe you know how to do plumbing. I don't know. Maybe you know how to fix cars. You know how to sew, but you know how to do something. You've solved the problem. You are not an adult. You're not even a teenager in the United States of America or somewhere else in the world, and you haven't figured out how to solve a problem. You know how to solve a problem. You know how to do something. But the problem is, because you're the one that knows how to do it, you think it's not valuable. You think because you know how to do it, everybody knows how to do it. And I am here to tell you, everybody does not know how to do everything you know how to do, any more than you know how to do everything that anybody else knows how to do. Okay, so cool. And you have a unique blend of experiences that give you the ability to do the next thing. So you study the right people, then you solve the right problem. You solve the right problem. Because if you pick the right people and you pick the wrong problem, it doesn't do you any good, right? So you solve the right problem. What's the right problem? Well, I don't know. The problem must be recognizable. You have to recognize that it's a problem, and you recognize it's a problem, watch this, because the large group of people that you've selected recognize it's a problem. So you watch them being frustrated by the fact that they're recognizing there's a problem. And usually when people have a problem, they get frustrated. And when they get frustrated, they're emotional. And guess what? When emotions goes up, intelligence goes down. And when their intelligence goes down, there's your opportunity. Because you're not emotional about solving the problem. Why? You already solved it. Like I already solved how to make $7,000 a month. And later I got to the point where I figured out how to make even more money than that. I mean, eventually got to the point where I was making over $40,000 a month in network marketing. But I didn't start creating trainings then. I started creating trainings way before then. Okay, so the problem must be recognizable. You recognize that they have a problem. Notice I didn't say you recognize a problem and then go tell them you found a solution. You recognize that they recognize they have a problem. So it's me seeing you frustrated that causes me to create a solution to your frustration. It's not me, I like doing this, so I'm going to solve this problem because I like solving this problem. Nobody cares what you like. Nobody cares what I like. Okay, so the problem must be recognizable. The problem must be measurable. Like, when I say measurable, it has to have a monetary cost associated with having the problem, or you must be able to figure out a monetary cost of not being able to solve the problem. It reminds me of a friend of mine. Her name's Annie. First time I ever coached with her. She did not have a make money offer. She didn't have a weight loss offer. She didn't have a relationship offer. She had I'm going to help people get control over their alcohol offer. I'm going to help people get control over their alcohol. Okay, so she said to me, we were both speaking at a conference, she said to me, Myron, hey, I've got my conference coming up. I've got my conference coming up in 2 weeks, my event. I said, how many people are coming to it? She said, 170. I said, oh, great. She said, yeah, do you have any tips for me? I said, it depends. What are you selling? She said, I'm not selling anything. What? I said, is it okay if I coach you? She said, sure. I said, that is the worst idea I've ever heard in my life. I said, if you're not selling anything, what are you doing? She said, oh, I created this manual, it's 70 pages, and we're going to go through the manual at the workshop. I said, can I coach you again? She said, yeah. I said, that is the second worst idea I've ever heard in my life. She said, what should I sell? I said, well, here's the problem. If they don't pay, they won't play. What does that mean? The heart follows the pocketbook. If you don't sell them something, they're not going to take whatever your solution is seriously enough to go do it. So I said, here's what you do. Go create. She said, well, what should I sell? I said, take the manual that you created and turn it into a coaching program. She said, how much should I sell it for? Like she had so much aversion to this. You have no idea. I said, how much would make you smile? Say, what's that called? That's called the smile test. How much would make you smile? She said, I don't know, $4,000. I said, great. Sell it for $6,000. She's like, what? She's like, what? And yeah, sell it for $6,000. But how do you do that? Well, I said, well, I got good news for you. I said, it just so happens, this was on a Saturday, and I know some of you are going to think this is really self-interested, but wait till the end of the story. I said, it just so happens, this was on a Saturday now. We were in Nashville, Tennessee. I said, it just so happens, next Monday in Tampa, day after tomorrow, I have my training where I teach people how to sell at their conferences. And she said, how much is it? I said, it's only $25,000. And I said, if you and your husband, if you and Brian, y'all come to this event, I will teach you how to make that event profitable. And here's what I'm going to tell you. If you do what I say, if you come to this conference and you do what I say, you will do no less than $170,000 in sales at that event. She said, but how can you say that? I said, because I know how this works and I know what I'm going to teach you how to do, and I'm telling you that's what's going to happen. She's like, okay. So she moved her schedule around, changed her plane tickets from flying back to Denver to flying to Tampa. She comes to Tampa. She comes to the event for 2 days. On the first day, she's excited. She comes to me in the first break. Oh man, this is so good. Oh, this is so much. Oh my goodness, I've already got my money's worth. Okay, cool. But we haven't gotten to the good stuff yet. She's like, okay. So she stays there. The next morning, right before lunch, she comes to me and she is distraught. You know why? Because the event's about to be over. She's going to have to go home and do this stuff. She's like, Myron, I've just got this internal resistance to selling. Blah, 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 blah. And she, like, almost in tears. I said, Annie, it's okay. I said, let me ask you a couple of questions. You know why I wanted to ask her a couple of questions? Because questions are the answer. I said, so, are you the best in the world at helping people get control over alcohol? Or are you the second best, third best, or somewhere like way down the list? She said, oh no, I'm the best. I said, you're better than everybody. Oh, way better. Like our results speak for themselves. Like we have more people who get control over alcohol and other addictions, like who like years later are still clean than anybody else. And she doesn't even help people stop drinking. That's not even her thing is, I'm just gonna help you get control over it. And usually when people get control over it, using her method, they stop, right? So she said, I said, you're the best in the world. I said, okay. She says, yeah, but I don't want to sell these people stuff because I said there are rehabs they can go to, there are places they can go to for free, like Alcoholics Anonymous is free. Does Alcoholics Anonymous get them the results you get? Oh, no, not even close. Okay. I said, are there rehab centers that charge? Yeah. I said, how much do they charge? I don't know, $30,000 for 30 days? $30,000. I said, Annie, let me ask you a question. I thought you said you love these people. She said, I do. I said, you love these people, but you're going to let them go do something for free that doesn't work as well as what you have, and you're going to let them go pay $30,000 for a rehab that's not as good as what you have to offer them, and you're afraid to sell them this training for $6,000? I don't get it. I'm confused. She says, oh yeah, I guess you have a point. She says, but why would they pay $6,000? I said, because it's going to cost them less than what else they're going to pay if they don't do it. What do you mean? I said, Annie, have any of the people who couldn't get control of their alcohol ever been divorced by their spouse because they couldn't get control of it? She said, yeah, all the time. I said, how much do divorces cost? I said, let me tell you, they cost half of everything. Oh, so is $6,000 less than half of everything? Yes. I said, have any of the spouses who divorced their partner because they couldn't get control over alcohol ever gotten a relationship with a new partner and she had children with the one she got divorced from? Yes. Have any of the new partners ever molested any of those children? Yes. That's real talk. It's sad, but it's real. I said, okay, how much would it be worth not to have your children molested? $6,000? Yeah. Okay, good. You have to show them how much it could potentially cost them if they say no to your offer, because that's real. That's a real tangible cost. I said, have any of those children who've ever been molested by the new partner ever committed suicide? Yes. How much is it worth for your child not to potentially commit suicide? This is real. This happens all the time, y'all. I'm not manipulating this. I'm just making her aware of what to make people aware of so they can know it's $6,000 or these potential outcomes. Are y'all tracking? She said, oh, I never thought of it like that. I said, I know. That's why you paid me, so I can help you think of it like that. So that when you talk to people, they understand what's at stake. She made the offer, and guess what happened? She called me in tears. Myron, they came to me thanking me in tears for creating this offer. And she didn't do $170,000 in sales. She did $260,000 in sales. Because she clearly described, she had a problem that people couldn't solve. They couldn't get control over their alcohol. The problem was recognizable. The problem was measurable. I showed her how to measure not having the result. And the problem must be fixable. Well, the problem was fixable. She could fix the problem. Well, I mean, I could tell you more stories about Annie and the progress she's made and the progress that she's made in other people's lives. It's mind-blowing. So, you have to study the right person, you have to solve the right problem, then you have to select the right presentation. Now, here's the right present. Most people's presentations are terrible. Did you know that? Let me ask you a question. Are most of the presentations you've seen in your life great or terrible? Terrible. So we all know that most presentations are terrible. But why doesn't anybody ask, why are most presentations terrible? In fact, here's what's really cool. So I'm talking to you right now, right, about finding a problem. Most presentations are terrible. That's a problem. There's a guy named Dan Roam, R-O-A-M. He wrote a book called Draw to Win, The Back of a Napkin, blah, blah, blah. He literally created a consulting business that, back when I first found out about him, was doing $2 million a year, teaching business executives how to draw presentations on the back of a napkin. By drawing stick drawings and writing on literally, he built a $2 million consulting practice, a best-selling book, a series of best-selling books. So, select the right presentation. The right presentation is going to outline the pain of the problem. And it's going to outline the pain to such a degree that they can feel the pain. Now, one of the things that outlining the pain does is it helps your prospect or your prospective customer conclude, this person understands my problem better than I do. And if they perceive that you understand their problem better than they do, they're going to also conclude that you understand how to solve the problem. So it outlines the problem, but it outlines a painful problem. It outlines the painful present. The presentation outlines the painful present. It outlines the pleasurable payoff, so it shows them how good their life is going to be when this pain is removed, and now they're in pleasure. Isn't that why we buy stuff? To get out of pain and to get into pleasure. Isn't that why we buy stuff? Isn't that why we make decisions, period? Yeah. And then it has to outline a practical plan. So you outline a practical plan. This is how we're going to go from pain to pleasure. You can't just say we're going to go from pain to pleasure. You have to show this is what we're going to do to go from pain to pleasure. That's what the right presentation does. Then you have to sell the right product. The product's the product's perception must be stated. You can't assume that people know what you mean. When you are communicating with people and you're telling you can solve their problem, what you have to do is you have to clearly state. You don't imply, you don't infer, you don't innuendo. You say this is what you can expect. Like I told Andy Grace, here's what you can expect. If you do what I say, you're going to make at least $170,000. Now, that's a bold statement for some people, but it wasn't a bold statement for me because I understand how my numbers work when I'm teaching people how to sell at their conferences. Is what I'm saying making sense? So she said, so the product's perception must be stated. The product's power must be demonstrated. If you can demonstrate that the product works, you can demonstrate it either by video testimonials, written testimonials. If you have a product that's demonstratable, that's usable, you can demonstrate the product, okay? And then the product's price must be calculated. You figure out the price before you start talking to the people. Now, when I say the price must be calculated, here's what you calculate when you're calculating the price. You calculate how much money do I desire to make? Because you have to make enough money to stay in business. You have to make enough money to be able to pay your expenses. You have to make enough money to be able to hire a team. You have to make enough money to be able to solve the problems of the business as well as solving the problems of the person. Otherwise, you're charging too little. Are y'all tracking? And so it has to be calculated. You have to do calculations on price before you start just go, yeah. Here's what most people do. They don't calculate price. You know what they do? They create prices by comparison instead of by calculation. They look, oh, this is what this person's selling, this person's selling, so I'll make my price the same. I don't do that. My prices are way more than everybody else's who does anything even remotely similar to what I do. Why? Because I've calculated the price based on me staying in business long enough to help the other people who want that solution. Okay. And to be able to give my clients a really elegant solution that's not just that doesn't just solve the problem, but it turns into an experience. Okay. So, and then lastly, you have to satisfy the right promise. Because when you give the right presentation, you're giving a promise. You're telling them this is what you're going to be able to do. And then you're delivering a product. The product has to satisfy the right promise. So in other words, you have to fulfill the promises that you gave. The solution, so number one, it has to be the solution they've been seeking. I'm so blown away that people are like, how do I find people to sell stuff to? You're asking the wrong question. How could you possibly hope to find the right answer? Don't look for people to sell stuff to. Make yourself findable for people who already want to buy what you already want to sell. There's stuff I already want to buy. Like I called Anthony, a car sales guy in Orlando, to see what he had in inventory because I was going to Orlando. He didn't have anything that I wanted, but if he did, I might have bought it that day, right? So you want stuff that the marketplace is looking for. So you want a solution they've been seeking. You want a solution they'd be satisfied with. So when they buy the solution, they're going to be like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. And then you need a solution that they'd be willing to submit a payment for. When you do that, here's what it ends up looking like. I said calculate. Let's do some calculations really quickly, and this is the last thing we're going to do. If you have a product that makes you $20 profit, all you have to do is sell 50,000 of them. And you just made $1 million. How's that for a calculation? But like 50,000 what? A $20 book. Okay. So if I sell 50,000 of those, $1 million. But guess what? If I'm multiplying two numbers that end in zero, multiply two numbers, 2 times 5 is 10, count the rest of the zeros, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's 6 total, that's 10 plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's $1 million. That means if I move this zero from here and put it back there, if I have a product that I sell for $200 profit, I only have to sell 5,000 of them. I do 1/10 the work, make the same amount of money. All I have to be able to do is show the person that I'm talking to why this is 1/10 of the payoff that they're going to get. But guess what? If I move another zero and I have a product that makes me $2,000 profit, I only have to sell 500. 500 is only 2 a day, 5 days a week. That's 10 sales a week. For 50 weeks, you get 2 weeks off and you can have weekends off. Okay, well, what if I have a $20,000 offer? I only have to sell 50, that's 1 a week. Here's the beautiful, what if I have a $200,000 offer? I only have to sell 5. Well, guess what? I can do all of those. I don't have to pick one. This is your fastest path to your first million. You have to pick your people. Who am I going to help? Pick their problem. What am I going to help them do? Pick their payoff. What are they going to get out of it? Pick your price. How much am I going to sell it for? And then go do really good presentations. And stop thinking that what you have isn't worth something because you're the one that has it. The difference between you and I, the primary difference is I see the value in the problems I've solved for me and my clients in the past, and you don't see the value in the problems you've solved. But I know you've solved problems. So hopefully this will help you take your life, your business, your family to the next level. And we'll look forward to seeing you. We're going to be back live again on Wednesday this week. I'm going to be in studio with Dr. Benjamin Hardy. We're going to be talking about his new book, The Science of Scaling. We're probably going to talk about some of his older books as well. We're going to be like chopping it up. He's going to present. I'm going to present. We're going to have conversations back and forth. We're going to engage the audience. It's going to be crazy. We're going to go from 9 in the morning to and we'll probably go live about 9:15 till 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's going to be crazy intense. You don't want to miss this. I'll see you guys on Wednesday. In the meantime, in between time, stay blessed by the best, and we'll see you in the next video. See you Wednesday. Bye for now.